You know how that goes.
I can see your energy. I'm so happy to see it.
Yeah, it's coming back. This is so good. Oh, I gotta have to take this home. I'm not gonna be able to eat all of it.
Either. I'm gonna be sitting in my bag. Oh my God.
Damn,
Thank you.
You got a lot of food. Thank you. All right,
We got a lot.
yeah, that's your food.
If you don't hear about it, then they just read about it. But you don't think about it, cause we about to speak about it. Why the prisons be so crowded, all filled up with melanin. Kick screamed and we shouted, we deserving better than we've been getting. Then we
Prison.
I was doing such shit at
Come on. All right, Chris. You ready? Yeah, you can see it. Hey, everyone. We are back live. This is the Women of the Wall on Joy Radio. Please, we are the station that's more than music. Don't forget to download the Joy Radio. I got Miss Jolie, I got Miss Jeannie, I got Kalia Parker, and we have our guest today, none other than Cheynin Cain. Cheynin, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay, Cheynin, so I had you on the show because I think you have an amazing story. She unfortunately had to go behind the wall. Can you explain to us what happened when you went behind the wall?
First of all, it's not unfortunately, it's fortunately. And in 2015, I got into a little situation that could have been prevented. I just, I was young. I was just like little, I don't know to really explain the cause. But, in my past, I haven't done everything correctly. And I feel like the reason why I say it's fortunate is because the situation helped me to really figure out who I am, and thank you. And if it wasn't for that experience, I wouldn't know that that's not where I wanted to be. So I feel fortunate to have God come and sit me down for a second.
Okay, that's how you feel.
That's how I feel in my heart.
Okay, and when you went behind the wall, what was the condition? Like, how was it? Like,
it's not like the movies, and I guess it's any condition. I mean, what do you when you on punishment or you put in time out? You're not gonna be put out in time out at the park or at the movie. So I mean, it wasn't as bad as the male prisons at all. I mean, 3 hots in a cot? That's the conditions. Modern day slavery. That's the conditions.
Okay.
But if you strong enough, it don't matter.
Cheynin, you did your time in New York or with the feds, or?
Pardon me?
You did your time in New York or with the feds?
Yeah, I did my time in New York, upstate. I was in Bedford Correctional Facility, and I was in Taconic Correctional Facility. So not the feds, the state prison.
What programs did you take advantage of? Or what programs were you even offered or eligible for?
I took ASAT. I completed that program, which is not a program of my choice, being that my case was violent. I had to take that. It's a drug and alcohol treatment program. So I did that. I went to school, I got my GED. I also, I did a knitting program that was therapeutic for me. So I even knit at home now. So much stuff. I was even doing we would do plays. It's not as like, I don't want to make it seem like it's fun. So I really don't know what to say to, you know what I mean? Because, it wasn't like.
People don't realize how much knitting and crocheting has happened inside these prisons.
Right. They don't.
Y'all did plays? Now that's up my alley.
Like I write plays, I direct plays, so I want to know more about these plays.
Okay, so we did so this is into Conduct Correctional Facility. So if it's a holiday, like the biggest play we did was a like a conduct, like, so we did, like, I was Sandra Bland in the play.
Okay.
So we were doing things like that to bring awareness. So I was Sandra Bland, had, like, you know, different advocates that passed away. We shouted them out. And then the actual play part was just about it was called Could Have Been You. So it just shows different stories of different inmates and how they got caught. And it would show how people do the same thing all the time and they don't get caught. So, you know, it was like a ghetto play, but it was, we did what we could. It was fun though. It was real fun.
Was this part of the RTA? Was it part of the RTA?
I believe so.
Okay, so
I believe so.
That's a very big group behind the prison walls.
Yeah, it was.
But it's not offered everywhere. I know that in Sing Sing.
No,
it's offered in Sing Sing.
It's not offered everywhere.
Okay, one question. Can you, when you say the programs, say what those things are, because people that are listening, even myself, I don't know what that means. So you need to explain what that means and what does it, you know, what is it? How does it benefit you? I know it's benefiting you in some way, but what does the acronym mean?
I can't really explain what the RTA means, but I know that on the inmate side of things, it was just for the inmates. A lot of old timers, they don't have programs, so you got to have something else for everybody to do. So with that prison, they did celebrate a lot of stuff, and they did give us a lot of opportunity. Like I'm trying to think of the name of the college. I can't think of the name of the college. They have a really, really big college program that work with the men's prisons, I believe.
Bard?
Also.
Is it Bard?
Bard. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Bard. Bard was crazy. And Bard made me want to come home and go to college. So, and I did a semester. But Bard, I have pictures from a Bard graduation that I actually attended in 2017. Could have been 2008. Actually.
Yeah, CPEP does a similar program, which is Cornell Prison Education Program. And they do another like rehabilitation through the arts with CPEP.
Yes.
And
that's what RTA
they have
means,
a Phoenix
so that
Players Club. And the thing is that these programs are all created by people in prison.
Exactly.
You know what I mean, because like she said, the elders, you run out of your mandatory programs early. Like you used to be able to take them early. So you run out of things to do. So you take your college programs. Most places only give you an associate's. So you need things to do. They come up with programs. They establish and create these programs that help all the rest of the generations that come through these prisons.
Yes.
Somebody tell me hold on one second. Somebody just tell me what it meant. RTA is rehabilitation through the art.
Right.
Just tell me what it was. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, Cheynin. Go ahead.
No problem.
So when you came out, now what does your future look like? What are you doing now that you're out in the free world? What are you doing now?
Well, now
explain
that
to everybody.
I've been home almost 3 years. So within that time frame, I've completed parole successfully. So I'm no longer on papers or anything like that. So thank you. So the first thing I did was I started a reselling, like, I don't know what you call it. So I sell clothes, but I don't make the clothes. I resell the clothes on my body cheaper, and then I sell them, you know, like that. That was the first thing that I got into. And then see, y'all can't really see my face right now like that. If y'all can see, I struggled with eczema, like since I was like, I don't know, maybe like 11 or something like that. So when it's real popular, everybody's starting businesses. So it's a couple of people that I knew personally that started skincare lines, Naked Skincare.
Yeah.
So many. I wanted to shout them out, but I tried them. They didn't work for me. Like they worked, but it didn't work for me. So now I'm like, you know, I got to figure out something for me, you know, personally, you know. So I just started a skincare company. It's called Major Melanin, and I'm gonna do a soft launch next month. So it's for every melanin is not just black. You know what I mean? And it's just juicy. That's it. So it's for all skin colors, types, ages. It's for kids. It's for men. It's for women. And yeah, and I'll be talking more about that. I'm gonna try to get back on here with y'all too. After, you know, I do my soft launch, I'm gonna have a pop-up shop. I want to invite everybody, you know, if I can, through Pamela. And now I'm doing so much stuff. It's crazy because you know, we're taught as children to focus on one thing. So growing up, I always focused on one thing. And I didn't really succeed the way I wanted to succeed because there was other things that I wanted to do too. So now I'm just doing everything that I want to do. I'm doing everything at the same time. And it's what it is. So I'm doing a step team for the kids. It's called 914.
Yes.
And that's just something, you know, that they could do in the summer. Hopefully we could carry on into other seasons. But right now it's for the summer. But just give them something to do for the summer because a lot of things that I had and we had growing up, they don't really have anything for the kids anymore. So I want to give back and help in any way that I can. So that's my goal right now. Just stay on track.
That's
very good, Cheyenne. I am so proud of you. Well, Cheyenne is also my goddaughter.
Yes.
So I've known her for a long time. But I'm very, very proud of her. She's doing amazing things with her step team. She showed me her skincare line. She's going to be featured in our magazine for the summer issue. And she's going to come back to the show with everything. And definitely she's going to give us information for our pop-up shop. So, I don't know. I'm sorry. Indira's trying to come in. So I'm trying to do everything. So I'm so proud of her. Once she came home, she's doing such amazing things. She started her LLC. She's doing a not-for-profit. So I want to show the good side of, okay, yeah, she messed up a little bit, but she's amazing and she's coming back strong and helping everybody. Anybody else got questions for her?
Cheyenne, I wanted to ask you, did you try to pursue this while you were on parole, or did parole make you like do other things?
Well, all right. So the only thing that parole made me do was like anger management, in the drug and alcohol program. They helped me get an OSHA. So actually parole was really helpful more than anything with me personally. And at the end of the day, I did my best to not even give them a reason to be restricting me. So I've never got a violation on parole or anything like that. And a lot of stuff I was pursuing while I was on parole, and my parole officer was open to letting me do what I needed to do to better myself. So shout out to Maristani. That was my parole officer.
That's good to hear.
And I had, you was upstate before or something?
No, not me.
Oh, okay. But for women that's coming home, it's important to try to get a certificate of relief. Because I have a certificate, I got a certificate of relief as soon as I came home. And that's because I did well in prison. But a certificate of relief doesn't block you from working and doing things a person who's not a felon.
Yes. Right now, also there's legislation in the works for the Clean Slate Bill, which would make that happen automatically. It would steal people's records and expunge people's records automatically. So you wouldn't have to jump through the hoops of getting a certificate of relief or going to a judge or going to the probation department and saying, please, sir, please, could I be relieved of this undue stress?
Right. Absolutely.
So that Clean Slate Bill, actually, the 18th is an advocacy day. If you want to get involved, the Center for Community Alternatives, they're leading the campaign on that. So I could get you more information if you want.
Okay, yeah, we could exchange information for sure. You can get my information from Pamela. I'm open to talk about anything prison reform, anything. I'm open for it.
I'm gonna put the website on the chat. It's centerforleadership.org. I'll put it in the group text in the chat so that you can have access to what Jolene was talking about.
Perfect.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, Cheyenne, stay with us for a minute. We're trying to bring in our next
No
guest. We're
problem.
trying to bring in our next guest, which is Charles Norris. I don't know what is going on why he can't get in because we're trying to get him in so he can start talking. Charles Norris is from White Plains, New York. He's an attorney, and he wrote an amazing piece about the George Floyd situation. And as soon as because he's fighting to get, he's trying to get it. There he goes, Charles Norris. Okay,
I'm
hey,
here.
Charles, unmute yourself. Everybody, this is Charles. I met him. It was kind of crazy how we met. We were both in FedEx, and I was actually from getting the first magazine up and put it on a canvas. And he asked me a question. He was like, "Is this your magazine?" And we started talking from there. So it was really, really a nice conversation. And ever since then, I've learned about all of the amazing things he's doing for the people behind the wall. He has his own story, and then he wrote an amazing article that he's allowing us to use for the summer issue of The Wall. So Charles, take it away. Introduce yourself, everybody. This is Charles Norris.
Hi.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome.
Thank you. Actually, call me Charlie. Just a little bit of background. I grew up in Hartsdale, New York, which is part of Greenburgh, New York. I'll be 63. I'm a lawyer. On the board of ed in my town. I'm a spin instructor, and I post articles though on medium.com under the name Charlie Norris. I have about 17 or 18 articles on there. And I had an unusual childhood, I guess. I went to an experimental school district that was incredibly diverse. And wherever we lived in town, you got bused to the school. It didn't matter what part of town. So I started there in kindergarten, and I grew up with this incredible tapestry of people. And between that and the household that I grew up in, it made me, I look at people as people, and I get how the world views me. I'm a 6 foot tall, curly haired white lawyer dude. And I understand my privilege as a result of that. But I have experiences talking to people and just trying to find ways to connect human beings. And then about 10 years ago, our daughter was attacked. So 4 days before the start of her senior year of college, she was sleeping off campus and she was raped by a masked gunman.
Oh my gosh.
And it started us on a journey. And I'm fortunate in that when I was 15, I met a 14-year-old girl. She asked me out 5 days after we met, and now in July we'll be together 47 years.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
And her name's Annie, and we choose love over hate. And so after getting some trauma counseling, we all did, but after getting some trauma counseling, about a year later, I was asked, about 9 years ago, I was asked if I would go into prisons as part of an empathy program. It's called Resolve to Stop Violence, RSVP, patterned after something they do in San Francisco. And I try to bring humanity. I don't go in with anger. I don't go in with blame. There's a lot of reasons why people wind up behind walls. I don't necessarily excuse people for what they do, but I've come to understand why certain people wind up behind walls. And someday they're not going to be behind walls. So we need to take care of them. And if we're going to put people behind walls, then we're going to have to give them the tools that they need to be successful when they come out. And I've been part of that process for 9 years.
I love that
Great.
point.
Yeah,
That was so
go ahead.
powerful. Someday they won't be. Like 90% of people that are in prison are eventually released. So why is it that we're perpetually punishing and not focusing on therapy and not focusing on the therapeutic version that would cure and versus compound the trauma that just exists?
Well, that's exactly right. And the question is, who do you want walking the streets? And I get that there's issues of like historical issues of inequity in this country, going back 400 years. I understand Black Lives Matter. I understand white privilege. When we put somebody behind bars, as you said, 90% of people, they're going to be coming out. We have a responsibility to them, we are just as responsible to them as kids going off to Harvard. They are our brothers and sisters. So what if we're going to lock people away? How can we provide them with the tools, the education, the counseling, so when they come out, they can live their lives? Because, one of the things that I say when I'm in prison and I'm talking to the guys is that no one is guaranteed any number of tomorrows. I mean, something could happen to me tomorrow. Something could happen to me the next day. And the question is, what are you going to do with your tomorrows? And so for the guys who are sitting in prison, how do we help them be the best version of themselves? Because a lot of them, over my 9 years doing this work, you learn that a lot of these guys were victims and they grew up in situations where the only language they knew was violence. So,
Charlie, I'm sorry,
how do
Charlie,
we-
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
That's okay.
Where is
That's okay.
your work again? Is it in New York State?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
So,
and what are the facilities that you provide these programs, or like what facilities is it that you're working with to empower these men?
So I work with my whole family got counseling through Westchester Victims Assistance Services when our daughter got attacked.
Right.
So they run a program, unfortunately, because of budget cuts. Right now, it's back only in the Westchester County Prison in Valhalla. There is a maximum security area where there's guys either waiting to go upstate or waiting to be released, and they can volunteer to enter a program called the RSVP program, Resolve to Stop Violence program. There was a time when I was going into other facilities, but funds dried up, and then the pandemic happened. I also go into, I speak to groups of survivors, and I've made presentations. They in Westchester County, I'm sure, like other places, on Halloween night they sequester people who are pedophiles, and I've made presentations to those people. But primarily, it's the work. So I go in quarterly into the prison in Westchester County. I rarely see the same. There's usually 44 guys who have volunteered to be in this program, and they go through. It's a 3 or 4 month program, and I am one of the presenters at the program. And a lot of other presenters get burned out. It's a difficult thing to do because every time you go in, I tell a story. I tell a story about getting a phone call on August 28, 2009. And the story rips open wounds, but the statistics show that the guys who go through this program, their rate of recidivism drops from 50%, which is the national average, to below 10%.
So this program is more or less almost do they leave with a certificate? I mean, is this something that gets put in their file? And
so
sort of like in state prison, right? You have some programs that you should complete. Just like the young lady prior to you coming on, she had to take a drug program.
Right.
So is that the same? Is that something like that?
The program I involved, it's voluntary. These guys volunteer to be in the program, and they do get a certificate of completion when it's over. And what's been really interesting, I've been doing this so long that I've actually had 3 or 4 times as I've walked the streets in Westchester or White Plains where I live, or however, or wherever, I've actually had people come up to me and say, "You don't know me, but I saw you and you changed my life and you made me believe in hope and you made me believe that people can change." And I don't go in and they appreciate the fact that I don't go in with, I never judge. I am nobody to judge.
Right.
You know, I had an experience happen to me, but it's driven me to try to prevent it from happening again. So I don't go in with judgment or anger. That, you know, it's not, you know, if all we do is tell these guys that they're bad. So originally when I went in, there was somebody who was running the program my first couple of years, and it was a gentleman, and he wanted me to emphasize, you know, in my story, you know, the damage that was done to my daughter, the damage that was done to all of us. But over time, I realized that these guys are in prison. They have a pretty good idea that things have not gone well in their life. And if all they're going to hear is that they are evil, then no change is going to happen.
But they have to live with,
You know,
they have
they're
to
human.
live for the rest of their lives with whatever crime it was that they committed to begin with. And redemption starts the moment that they want to be able to rehabilitate themselves and move forward and do something constructive while incarcerated. And so
Correct.
by you coming in, right, an outsider, and sharing your horrific story and the things that took place in your family, and coming in with an open heart, I guess that gives them a different mindset. It's like a mindset reset, right? And it makes them see it and
is.
view it from a different perspective. Here you are coming in open arms with no hatred and no judgment. And that's great. I mean, I appreciate the work that you're doing, because you know what? Even if you're getting through to one person, right?
Well,
That's one less person that's going to come out and reoffend
Well,
and have hope, because at the end of the day, everyone is just looking for some hope, right?
that's it.
They're looking for someone to believe in them, in giving them a second chance, a second opportunity to somehow. They're always going to have that devil in them, right? Like that demon in them,
Yeah.
knowing that they did what they did, but they're trying to get past that and do something better with themselves. So that's awesome.
Well, you know, thank you. You know, it's an interesting thing because, you know, we've got over incarceration of African American men
And Latinos.
And we've got other people who are given second chances in every walk of life.
yes.
That's the bill that we're fighting for right now. You know, we are, you know, I'm part of the, I'm a leader. Mark is on the line. I don't know, Mark, if you can hear me, but RAPP right now, it's releasing aging people in prison,
Yeah.
along with the People's Campaign for Parole Justice. This is what we're fighting for. We're trying to get our elders home, you know?
You know, it's a really interesting thing. What a lot of people don't realize is that when you add an educational and psychological services, how the rate of recidivism drops.
Absolutely.
And the president that actually put more, this shocked me, the president that put more money into this per capita was actually Richard Nixon, which is kind of weird to think about, because I'm not a particularly big fan of the dude, but you know, he did that. But
there needs to be, I think that there needs to be a blanket like consistency. There has to be something across the board for all New York State prisons, because right now the way it's set up is not set up that way. So if you're sent to Attica, that is considered a disciplinary prison, right? And so there are no rehabilitative programs, except maybe alternative to violence programs, which everyone has to take because they're in fights all the time.
Right.
But why are they fighting? Because there's nothing to keep them busy. There's nothing to keep them motivated to continue to better themselves. And so that's the problem with New York State. There is no consistency throughout the state. There are some prisons that are considered honor prisons. There are other prisons that are considered disciplinary ones. You know, you have upstate box and you have Southport that are still all box prisons. And so what are we doing as a society, right? What is the government, what are we doing to try to change these laws, right? And have better programs throughout the entire system, not just some, right?
Absolutely.
And that's the sad part about it. We have just such a broken system. And we could talk about it all we want, but you know, we need to make some noise. We need to do what we need to do to try to change these laws and try to get schools in, you know?
Charles, and on that note, what do you suggest for us to do to get things done instead of just talking about it and the
like programs like you, programs like what you're offering, instead of just Valhalla, you know, coming into New York State prisons.
What do you suggest that we should do? Like, what do you think we should do?
So I think, I think that now that the Democrats have both houses of the state legislature, I'm not going to speak about our governor for a minute because whatever, but
the governor's he's gonna put into law, because he was against the Holt. He was against Holt, but the majority ruled and we got it into law. So he's gonna do whatever the majority is gonna say. So yeah.
I think the way to approach it is, if you do a little bit of research, which I had done a while ago, and I forget the numbers, the amount of money that across the United States that we put into incarcerating people is insane. And if you have a rate of recidivism, that's 50%. So if you're talking to people who are maybe more conservative and just worried about their taxes, you're not getting a good bang for your buck. In addition to the fact there's the humanity piece. So how
yeah, it's almost 240,000 to keep an elder annually incarcerated.
Correct.
Because at 55 you're considered an elder because of the horrid conditions while incarcerated. They age at a rapid pace, and so to keep an elder in prison and maintain them, and the medical sucks because we all know that there is no real medical.
Right.
So just to keep them at a level of like just the bare minimum, it's like about 240,000 a year.
Yeah, but the flip side is, we know that now marijuana is legal in New York State now, but before it became legal,
not yet.
The same
written into law, but not yet.
Right. The same percentage. So the same percentage of white people smoke pot as people of color, but a person of color is 5 times more likely to get arrested. And then we know what happens once you get into the system. There's bail issues, and once you get into the system, you get ground down. It's horrible. It's just horrific. So, I mean, Pamela asked me the question, what do we do? So to address people who are in prison right now, it's about expanding the programs, the type of program that I'm involved in. And I'm sure there's similar programs in other part of the state. There's the state, oh my God, I'm losing. Is it OAS? No, the state victim services.
Special Investigations, OSI.
OSI. Well, no, not OSI. There's another program, and then I actually presented in Albany last year before the pandemic hit. It was to a statewide victims assistance.
Oh, Office of Victim Services.
Office of Victim Services, and I offered my services for free to anyone who would communicate with me. I would go all over the state, and then the pandemic hit. So
what I think is really interesting is, like, on last month's call, there was a man that had done some time, and he had said that he had real remorse for what he did until the brother, I think he said the brother of the person he committed the crime against, had wrote him and really shown him what he had gone through.
The daughter.
And so it just shows me, Charlie, what you're doing has a lot of value to bring someone to the awareness, to a different awareness. And then, like you said, like, to bring in that, people expect you to automatically come in and stigmatize them and treat them badly or look down on them or have a bias against them. I have 2 questions about that. Like, how do you not, because of what's been done, not to say that you should, but like, how do you, like, what part of your brain is different? Do you think you're just like a unicorn, or do you like, what part of you is different that you don't have that bias against someone that could, has like done what they did to your daughter?
I think part of it, again, is sort of the unique school district that I came from and the family that I grew up in, you know, people were just people. So I don't have any preconceived notions about anybody and about what their experience is. So, you know, I have my lens through which I view the world based upon my own experiences, and everyone's got their lens, and I am nobody to judge anybody. I don't know. I just never felt anger. I just wanted to do something. I wanted to see, you know, what can we do to prevent these things from happening? And then the logical outgrowth of that was, how can we help these people who we incarcerate and wind up in these horrific situations? Because they're people. They are just human beings. And I don't view them any differently.
There's a program similar to yours that is offered in Sing Sing. I think that because of the pandemic, there are no civilians that have been able to come in.
Yeah.
But there was something very similar that the Osborne group was offering some men, and these it was a prerequisite, which was you needed to have life, an indeterminate sentence, and it also needed to be of a violent nature. And so this was a group of, I believe, 25 men who would meet on a weekly basis. And it was sort of like a restorative program where you had to face the crime that you committed. Because what happens is you commit the crime and then you sort of like block it, right? And it's somewhere in your subconscious, but you never, ever, ever approach it, and you never hit it, you never face it. You never come to terms with it. And this program was so deep. It was so deep that I gotta tell you, my husband, who's Jose Colon, he's been incarcerated for 22 years.
Wow.
He participated in this group, and he had to write a letter to the victims. And for once, he had explained to me, he says, you know what, babe, I know what I did was wrong. He was a juvenile when he you know, committed the crime.
Okay.
But he had never, ever had anyone. He never had to go through a series of exercises where he needed to face the travesty, the horrific nature of the crime, you know, and then have to apologize and write a letter to his 17-year-old self. And what would he tell them differently, and what he learned. And I gotta tell you that he grew as a person. And I think that made him more empathetic.
Yes.
And it just changed his whole mindset. It was amazing. It was
You know why it takes so long to get there, though, for some people? Because the justice system, the criminal punishment system, puts people through so much and weaponizes the law against so many people that you spend so much time on your appeals and fighting what the prosecutor did to bend over backwards to stick you with a conviction or a sentence that is completely unjust. So you're going through all this personal injustice. At least maybe I'm speaking personally, because this is why it took us to get so long to the remorse part, because you're fighting so long with the courts. And then once you finally get to the part where you've expired your mandatory programs and you start getting into these restorative justice programs and accountability programs, then you come back and say, you know what? You look at your crime, you look at what you did, and you come to the part where, like Cheyenne said, where you realize maybe you're fortunate for being there now, but there was the justice system, like I quote, air quotes, justice system put you through so much. It takes a while to get to that remorse part. So having it early it's important. It holds value. That's why I think it's good that he brings it into the county jail.
The problem with that is, in my personal opinion, because, you know, my husband's still going through some stuff, but I think it's just having the option for the programs to be offered. That's the problem, that these things are not offered everywhere. They're not offered. And so, you know, you have nothing but testosterone built up, you know, and frustrations, and what do you have to do? You take it out on someone else, and you get into fights, and it's not who you are, and it's not who you want to be, but sometimes it just leaves you. So there
Mark
has
put
to
in
be
the chat that, like, Docs doesn't rehabilitate people. Like, you really definitely have to take that initiative. You have to take that bull by the horns and say, this life is not for me no more. I'm going this other way.
Right, but it has to be offered in the facilities. They are not offered everywhere. My husband's been everywhere. He's been to Attica, to Clinton, to Auburn, upstate box a million times. You know what I'm saying? Oh my God, 5 Point. He's been everywhere. And up north, you're in the mountains. It's a different animal up there.
Yeah.
Up there is very have to like just be on your A game and be ready to like get down, because there are no restorative programs, because most of these facilities up north are more like punitive. You know, they're more, no, what, Pam?
No, I want to shift gears for 1 second because we're deep in this conversation, but I wanted to ask Charlie, we wanted to touch some bases on the George Floyd situation, and he wrote an amazing article, and I wanted to let him give some thoughts, and Kalia has a lot of questions for him. So Charlie, can you give us some thoughts about the George Floyd situation? How do you feel about the trial? How you felt about what went on? Because his article is amazing, and like I said, you can look at it. He told you that he puts it out on, but he also gave us permission to put it in the summer issue. But I wanted him to give you guys what are his thoughts about the George Floyd situation, because the article, it made me cry, but it's a really good article, and I want him to talk about it.
Yeah. So it's been very difficult the last few years to look. There's always been tremendous inequity in our society. There's always been a white privilege, although people are uncomfortable talking about it and saying for what it is. I understand the value of what this gives me, because my brothers and sisters who I grew up with since kindergarten, I've watched horrific things happen to them that would simply not happen to me. They just wouldn't happen to me. And to deny that would be to deny their experience, would be to deny the horrific injustice of it. So, with all George Floyd, it was a culmination. Breonna Taylor, you know the names, everybody. But when I watched that video, that 9-minute and 28-second video of that police officer on this human being who was not responsive and who was dead, we've got we're so polarized, our society right now, and people can tune in. So I'm going to be 63. Not that long ago, when I was growing up, if you wanted to watch the nightly news, you tuned into Walter Cronkite, and he was a journalist, and he gave you factual information. So whether you were left wing, right wing, wherever you were, everyone was getting the same information. Now, people can tune into Fox News, or they could tune into OWN Network or MSNBC or whatever they tune into, and they're just hearing an echo chamber of what they want to hear. These are talking heads, not just delivering the news, but they're telling you who to hate and what to think. And I was so shocked when I watched that video, because how could anyone not think that's murder? And I don't care if you're pro-police or against police, if you're white or black or whatever you are. It just showed the divisiveness in our society, because that was murder. That was murder. And to say that it wasn't murder is absurd. And then to have people, because I get attacked because of the things that I post, and people tell me, oh, you must be in favor of wokeness, or you must be this, or you must be that. I go, I'm a human being. This was a human being. That's all it is. It was murder. Let's stop with the teams. Pro-police, anti-police, whatever you are, that was murder. And I was so shaken up by it after watching it, and watching some of the coverage of the trial, that I just had to write something. And it was short. It was like, it's a 2-minute read. And but to deny his humanity and to deny that was murder just shows how far we have to go.
Right. I'm actually working on my article for the June
Okay.
subscription magazine, but the red herring situation in the George Floyd trial. First of all, I didn't know what red herring was until recently. It definitely is putting in information that mislead the public about information that we feel strongly about. And when the George Floyd situation first came out, it was a whole lot of red herring. And one was they were saying that, oh, it was because he was on drugs and that's why. And we like, wait a minute. Like, no amount of drugs should make you put your knee on nobody's neck.
That's it.
No amount of counterfeit money should make you put your knee on somebody's neck. And I saw it in a movie. Y'all know I'm always talking about the different movies that I watch that connect back to the story. But it's this movie called Red River Run.
Yeah, sure.
And in that movie, it's Taye Diggs, and his name was Charles inside of the movie. So his name was Charlie, and he was a judge. And his son was murdered because his son, I don't want to tell y'all the whole plot line, but the son threw up the peace sign at the officer. The officer assumed that he was throwing up his middle finger, and then the officer murdered him, thinking that he had a gun inside of the car. Come to find out, he did not have a gun, which is normally the story, but the two officers murdered the young man and put a gun under him to make it seem like he had a gun. So that red herring thing is something that we as a society need to look more into and try to put an end to that, along with police.
You know, the red herring thing. So look, I don't mention the guy's name, but the orange guy that used to be in the White House, I don't even mention his name. But you know, he's walking around, he's still talking about the big lie. And there are people watching Fox News or watching whatever who buy into that because they're really afraid. You know, this is gonna be crazy. Just 2 seconds, just listen to this. This is gonna be nuts, okay? Just follow me on this. 65 million years ago, the dinosaurs ruled the earth. It was the end of the Cretaceous period. And a huge asteroid hit off of Mexico in the Tulum area and created what's called the Chicxulub crater. You can read this. That led to the death of the dinosaurs. The dinosaurs died out because first the plants died, and then everything that the dinosaurs ate died, and the dinosaurs died. What was left was a bunch of little furry things crawling around, little tiny mammals, some stuff in the ocean. And we evolved out of that. And there were survival mechanisms. And ultimately, we are a frightened tribal species. And so, you know, I grew up in this Greenberg, in this little experimental school district. But all the school districts around us were all white. Scarsdale, Edgemont, Ardsley. They didn't want during basketball games, they didn't want our fans to go to their schools. I played ice hockey. The one black ice hockey player at that time was a very close friend of mine, Robert. He has since passed away. And the abuse that he took on the ice was horrific. So I grew up in this cauldron watching the way people respond. Look, you could even look at it. I think Pamela and I might have mentioned this when we first met. I mean, look at the way Jesus Christ is anglicized in the pictures. They show him as a blonde-haired, blue-eyed guy with long hair. Well, he wasn't that. You can Google what he would likely look like.
That was made like this.
Like this.
Yeah,
and he probably had darker skin. Or the other way to look at it is, I'm sorry if I'm talking too much, but 50,000 years ago, all humanity, we hadn't left Africa yet. Everybody was dark. Everybody. And over thousands of years, as we spread across the globe, the farther you got away from the equator, the more you needed skin to lighten so you could absorb enough vitamin D. That's all it is. That's all it is. We're all African.
We did talk about that.
So, you know, until people realize where we came from, what our history is, and stop with this tribalism.
People live in bubbles. I came from Riverdale today, okay?
Yeah.
It's majority Jewish community.
Right.
And I have to tell you that a lot of people, you know, we had a rally today. And
Right.
so we're trying to get Jeffrey Dinowitz to co-sponsor the Elder Act, right?
Okay.
I think that the Fair and Timely is going to pass. It's going to get voted on. But the Elder Act is something that's been, it's been hard to pass.
Sure.
So we're in Riverdale, and you have, you know, it's mostly Jewish community.
Right.
And although the majority were very keen on learning what RAPP represents and what the Elder Act and what the Fair and Timely Act is, right? They feel that, oh my God, with all the injustices and the racial disparity that's going on, yes, we want to help, we want to help.
Right.
But then you have, I ran into some resistance today.
Yeah, again.
And it's the first time that I ran into resistance. And there were two people, there was a male and there was a female. The woman that I spoke to, she wanted to know a little bit more. So I gave her the spiel, you know, and spoke to her. She said, well, what are they in for? What crime did they commit?
Right.
And for a minute, I'm saying, I said, well, that's the whole point, right? The whole point is that we're trying to release our elders, 55 or older, who've done 15 years or more. Well, I'm sorry to cut you off, but what are they in for? It doesn't matter, right? Because our elders are dying in prison. And
Jeannie,
so
how
it's
many
just,
times have someone asked that about your husband? The first time you say your husband's in prison, how many times have people asked you that? The first question they asked you, not his name.
Honestly, I don't divulge that information too much, but you're right. My cousin
That's
asked
the first thing they want to know, so they can compartmentalize if they're worthy.
And I don't tell them, because I said, what does it matter?
But here's the thing, prison's supposed to rehabilitate. So, I mean, we're not doing our job. If prison's supposed to rehabilitate, no matter what they did, they should be able, they should be rehabilitated and let back into society.
But people don't think like that. People who don't know what we look like Charlie was saying, his skin tone, he knows he's privileged because the things that his friends encountered being Black, he knows he would never go through because it's white privilege. And so it's like I said, you know, it's like these people are living in a bubble, right? And it's like, oh, you're going to release these people. You're going to release these people, right? Because the majority that are incarcerated are Black and Latinos. Everybody knows that, right? There's a racial disparity there. And so they don't want to know. They kind of like, okay, no, I'm not, thank you. You can keep the card. And then there was a gentleman, and I asked him straight out. And I said, can I ask you a question? Why don't you want to take the card? I'm curious to know, as soon as I mentioned having our elders have the opportunity to go before a parole board to be released. It's just an opportunity. It's not a guarantee they're going to be released. He looked at me, he said, no. I said, no, what, sir? I'm really curious to know what your point of view is, because I'm on the flip side of this. I'm a Latina woman. You know, you're a white man. What is it that you fear? What is your thought process? I said, is it because you don't want Black and Latinos in your community? Because of the crime that they've committed? And he just stared at me, and I said, you can be honest with me. I want your perspective, because I'm on the other side of that.
1 second. Indira, what did you have to say, please? 1 second, Jeannie. Indira had a statement.
Well, I mean, the common denominator, even when Charlie goes into the prisons, is empathy. If people aren't able to empathize with any situation, whether it's George Floyd or the people in prison, they're not going to feel any connection. all of us, even though I'm a Black woman, I have privilege. I had to explain to my daughter, my privilege is I'm not a Black man. My privilege is I don't have a son. So when I saw that, I'm like, well, thank God I'm not a male. Thank God I don't have a son. It's the same way with people of other races. They have to look at it like the same way I look at it. I'm like, thank God it's not me. And unfortunately, everyone has to put themselves in each other's situation and try to empathize. And I think that's when people will start to see everything in a different light. But people don't take the time to look at the other side of the story until it happens to them, until it's one of their family members in the justice system, or it hits home. Nobody wants to address any issues until it's in their backyard.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned the people in Riverdale. So I was born Jewish. My wife is Italian Catholic. We both walked away from organized religion a really long time ago. We're really spiritual people. We meditate, but I don't like things that divide people.
Yeah,
that's just me. So I live near Scarsdale, which is a very, very wealthy community. And what you'll find in Scarsdale, you'll find people, it's fascinating. You'll find people who would call themselves liberal, call themselves progressive. They do. They're really happy to cut a check to the NAACP for $100,000. But if you mention diversifying their schools, boom. Boom.
That check relieves them of guilt.
Correct.
Yes.
Without them actually getting involved or getting to know, they stay in their bubble. They stay in their bubble.
Yeah.
And they don't want that bubble to be disrupted in any way, shape, or form. Oh, we're doing what we need to do. Oh, I donate to the NAACP, and that's okay. So that makes them fine, but that's not fine. That is not okay.
It's not okay.
Yeah, it's not.
I don't have any answers. I just
making sure that the narrative that is being put out there, though, is always important. So like Charlie mentioned, he always focuses on people first, human first. Like that's where when people, so we talk about people in prison, they talk about inmates. We talk about people being released from prison. They talk about parolees,
right?
And they talk about, they're always focused on recidivism rates. So we have to we have to make them understand that we need to build these programs to fight against their fears. So I think the original question was like, what do we do? So fighting narratives is a huge, huge part of this fight.
Yep.
That has to happen in the beginning, middle, and end. And
Jolene, we need to start by
excuse me, 1 second. 1 second. Kalia has something to say. Y'all keep getting up over. Kalia, take the floor. Would you ask Charlie about something?
Okay, so I just wanted to say, because I've heard a lot of you all share about rehabilitation programs in New York. So how do one find rehabilitation programs in other states? And even in New York, is there a list that we could go at the Department of Corrections?
Yeah.
And places and bring it to the actual inmates, because it's probably a lot of inmates that don't know about these programs, and it's hard. It's a gap.
So Mark can probably talk a little bit more about this.
I just found out about
1
RTA.
second. Right. Okay. I want to welcome. I can't see your name, Mark. I really can't see it. Thank you for coming on the show. He is. What is his name, Jeannie?
Mark Shervington. He's one of the organizers for the RAPP campaign and People's Campaign for Parole Justice.
Okay, so Mark, you can take the floor and tell us what your organization is about. Thank you for joining the show today. So let's just let him have the floor for 10 minutes, and then y'all can ask questions. So Mark, you're on.
Yes.
Okay, well, my name is Mark. I'm formerly incarcerated. I am a New York City community organizer with the RAPP campaign, Release Aging People in Prison. I've been home going on 6 years after doing a little over 29 years in New York State Prison on a sentence of 15 to life. And my sentence and the way things turned out pretty much is identical to the experience of RAPP's founder, Mujahid Fareed, who passed away a couple of years ago, shortly after my release. But like Mujahid, you know, again, I was repeatedly denied parole after initially becoming eligible after doing the 15 years that the judge sentenced me to. And mind you, I did not go to prison for selling Bibles. And I was incarcerated because I sought revenge after my fiance at the time was sexually assaulted and resulted in someone losing their life. You know, I shot and killed someone behind that. That is why I was incarcerated. When I was sentenced, the judge, and I received the minimum sentence, the lowest possible sentence you can get for murder in the state of New York, 15 years to life. The judge stated also on the record that he was giving me this sentence, the lowest sentence, in the interest of justice, meaning everyone thought it was fair. It was punishment, but that was fair. There was no objection. So when I come up for parole years later, only to be taken through this seriously adversarial process, you know, and punished again, you know, for the same reason that I was incarcerated for by the parole board, that's kind of threw me for a loop. And then I began to understand that it's not me, it's the politics of the situation, right? Initially, understand this, the parole board's job is one of evaluation. Someone mentioned rehabilitation and all that. Well, first of all, the Department of Corrections, I believe they're operating on the original definition of the term correction, which was a legal excuse, much like what some might call stand your ground or self-defense, right? Correction originally was the word that they would, people that enslaved Africans in this country would use to say that, oh, this is why I killed so-and-so, because I was correcting them, right? I was brutalizing them, you know, because they were being uppity or whatever, but they would say, well, I was correcting them. They're not human anyway, so that's not murder. And they would get off with that. So this is I believe this is the model or the definition that corrections is working with, because they truly don't correct anything. People incarcerated, in my experience, take the initiative to correct themselves, take the initiative to get their hearts and minds and their lives in order, you know, in order to be successful in the street, as I myself had done. Again, with the assistance, you know, of people that I met, you know, who were older than me, had been in the system longer than me, right? Who themselves had done that internal work and began to school and mentor, you know, young brothers like myself, right? So that we wouldn't repeat the same mistakes twice. You know, people like the founder of, somebody mentioned New Leadership at Medgar Evers. Well, that was created by Divine Pryor and Eddie Ellis, both of whom I knew. Eddie was like our elder, and he was personally responsible for mentoring a whole bunch of people, including myself, right? And gave us, like, you know, helped us focus our attention on, you know, what's real and what's important in life, so that when we came home, right, we would be assets to ourselves, families, and communities, right? One of the things, just to sidetrack slightly, one of the things that really caught my attention was what became publicly known as the 7 Neighborhood Study. That was Eddie and another brother called Lukeman. His name is Larry White, right? You know, they had this think tank mentality, all these old Panther cats and all who had all this political, social insight, right? They dug deep and found that most of the incarcerated people in the state of New York came from 7 specific neighborhoods in New York City. 75% of the people, think about this, in the whole state prison system, 3/4 of them came from 7 specific areas in New York City. South Jamaica, Bed-Stuy, South Bronx. I could go on and name the list. But in other words, these areas, you know, as we know, were targeted for over-policing, mass incarceration, and excessive punishment. So what happened, like many others, I myself was caught, it was kind of like built into the system, put it like that. And when you go through the system, you know, at least not as a lawyer, but, you know, as an individual, right, it seems like the overall presumption is you're guilty, you're gonna do some time. You know, like my lawyer told my family once, one of my lawyers, he said, listen, the only thing the family could do is try to convince me to plead guilty and hope I don't get 25 life, right? So it was like that. There is no defense. Like, this is like, you're guilty, you're going to jail. Same mentality when you go to the parole board, right? You're guilty, you need to be punished excessively. No amount of time seems to be enough, but that's not law, that's politics. These are the things that RAPP is fighting against. These are the things that we're trying to change. It's particularly, we're focusing on the back end of the system at the parole process, because the same racist mindsets, you know, that are kind of baked into the criminal legal system up front, right? They exist at the back end too. This is where people get lost.
Yeah.
When people come up for parole, no matter what they've done, right, throughout their incarceration, like personally, you know, with the help of people like Eddie Ellis and others, I did everything except walk on water. And I was working really hard on that, right? By the time I got to the parole board, give me this notebook here for a second. I got a file thick as an old school phone book. And instead of actually looking or even, you know, thinking about, well, wow, this is an actual person. This is a human being who's demonstrating his remorse through his behavior. Instead of thinking of it like that, it's, oh yeah, see, you got a lot of stuff here. Poof, drops it on the table, then goes right back. Well, you committed a crime. You killed someone. You need to be punished. Later for the circumstances, it's as if in their psychology, time stops when a person commits a crime, and you will always be that person in that moment. You can never be seen as anything else, right? Now, RAPP is well, I explain who RAPP is, but what we do, right, is we mobilize, you know, individuals, communities, family members throughout New York State, right, and this is also supported, our efforts and movement is also supported by crime victims and survivors. To Charlie's point, yes, there are some people who have experienced these things who don't agree that perpetual punishment is the answer to anything, right? That does not help keep our communities safe, right? Like I said, we mobilize people in communities across New York State to end what we call death by incarceration, right? We're basically trying to save lives, right, and right some wrongs. Now, at this point, we are in coalition with over 300 organizations throughout New York State, are spearheading what we have come to call, in the coalition, we've come to call it the People's Campaign for Parole Justice, the statewide movement, in order to make the parole release process fair to everyone concerned. We do not throw anyone away or consider anyone disposable based on their crime or sentence, right? And like I said, we're working to promote fair and meaningful release opportunities for incarcerated people. Primarily, the goal is decarceration and reuniting families, right? And we're calling on the governor and the legislators to pass 2 specific bills that will help right these wrongs and save lives, particularly in this period of the coronavirus, which is running rampant throughout the prison system. For those who are not aware, it's much worse than anything we experience out here. We're asking them to pass the Elder Parole Act that allows people age 55 and older who have already served 15 or more consecutive years an opportunity for parole release consideration. This particular group includes the state's oldest and sickest incarcerated folks. Fair and timely parole allows for a more meaningful parole release interview process for those who are already parole eligible. It ensures that they would be evaluated for release based on who they are today, including any rehabilitative efforts and personal transformation that they've undergone, you know, as well as their current risk of violating the law. It does not preclude the board from looking at an individual's crime, but it prevents them from making a decision based solely on that, because that, as Governor Carey pointed out in 1980, that is not the parole board's function. That punishment is up to the judge who speaks on behalf of the community.
Charlie, you have any
And I
any
think I
thoughts
said
on that?
way too much.
No, no, Charlie, you have any thoughts on what he just said?
Yeah, Mark, it's an honor to meet you. You know, it's
likewise. Thank you.
No, that's okay. When I go into the prisons, and again, without any preconceived notions, it's very interesting that. So the gentleman that attacked my daughter was never caught, and he will never be caught. Well, actually, he may have been caught. So just to back up, there was a serial rapist in Buffalo at that time, and after 10 or 11 incidents, the gentleman or whatever he is knew to urinate, and urine destroys DNA. He threw something over my daughter's head, so she couldn't identify him. So I got asked all the time. It's very interesting. I get asked all the time, what do I think the gentleman looks like? And I know what the question is. They want me to say that I think it's a person of color or whatever. I have no idea what this person looks like. None. That serial rapist, it stopped after a period of time. Maybe he was caught on some other charge. Don't know. But Mark, what you're talking about is humanity. And, we can launch rockets to Mars. We in ways of math and science, we've progressed very far as a species, but in terms of being our humanity. So what I tell people, when I do my presentations in the prison, because what you said something, Mark, that really struck me, because a lot of the prisoners, I'm telling my story, and they look at me and they think like I'm Jesus Christ and I walked on water. I said, well, the reality is I'm a little over 6 feet tall. I weigh close to 200 pounds and I played ice hockey. My guess is if I would have walked in the room seeing somebody attack my daughter, I might have responded differently. I don't represent that I responded, that I'm a special human being. I just respond. I had a certain set of circumstances presented to me. So Mark, I could be sitting in your chair. I don't deny that. So we're talking human to human. We're just guys talking, and that's what I tell them. So the issue is, as you said, it was a great discussion of what incarceration is. What are we trying to do? We know that so for instance, I get asked all the time, what do I think about capital punishment? Well, I've never believed in it. It's more violence. The prisoners ask me that. I go, I've never believed, and I confronted that after my daughter got attacked. So, and we know that capital punishment doesn't reduce the rate of crime. The states that have capital punishment have higher rates. So it goes back to humanity. It always goes back to humanity and treating human beings like human beings. So, people do things in life. You get punished or whatever you want to talk, but that period of time while someone's away should be developmental, restorative. And it's so interesting because I never heard your perspective when you're talking about, you appear before a parole board and it gets denied, or I've watched Shawshank Redemption, it keeps getting denied. Then I can't curse. What the hell's the point? Oh, I can. Then what the fuck is the point?
Let it out. Right. Let it out. I felt like that too.
Right. Then what the fuck is the point?
I was mad, sad, and a few other things.
Okay. So
I just had to find. I was mad, sad, and a few other things. I just had to find some $20 words to say it instead of saying how I really felt.
I got a lot of $20 words, but that other word's my favorite word. So I'm sorry. It is what it is.
It's okay.
So Mark, I feel you and I hear you, and
But you know, I'm going to interject, Mark. You didn't tell them that what you had to do in order to get released. He had to file an Article 78,
Yes,
and he had to fight the parole board because guess what? They would have
you
hit
did
him
that?
again. They would have hit him
Well,
again.
see, well, there's a backstory to that, right? If I can briefly, I recall being on Rikers Island and the old timer, you know, approaching me one day and said, "Excuse me, young blood, I ain't trying to get in your business, but what they charge you with?" And he didn't seem like he was trying to like size me up or anything. He seemed like he was genuinely concerned. I don't know why I'm everybody's favorite little brother or something, right? But I said, "Yeah, well, got a murder charge." He looks me dead in the face and says, "You need to get your ass in that law library and find out what them people are trying to do to you." Right? And that started my journey. I remember I go to commissary and I buy the yellow legal pad and a couple of pens. Yep. And I started researching and trying to learn to understand because, you know, I thought like my mom's was an egghead. She went to NYU. She taught me how to use all these big words. I understood what grown-ups were saying but I didn't know that in a courtroom, the English that I thought I knew had, you know, other meanings and stuff. Like I'm in there one day and they said something about wave, and I just kind of casually looked around. I didn't see no hands in there. I'm like, what the hell are they talking about? I didn't realize that wave, they just gave away one of my rights. I didn't understand, right? But so anyway, I learned law out of necessity, and it became a skill, you know, to the point where I would help others. And after a while, it kind of became an art, you know, because, you know, I got good at it. Right. So, you know, as Jeanette was saying, along the way, not only did I get a lot of people exonerated and their parole denials thrown out, right, but I finally had to, after parole denial number 9, you know, I found myself once again going back to litigate. And this time I just like kind of just put all I have and all, you know, in my everything I could imagine into this thing. It was amazing. But I've got my case in front of a rational judge who understood, you know, what was happening, the travesty that was happening to me. And he basically he threw out that denial, told them they got to give me another hearing and do it right. He basically told the parole board to do what the Fair and Timely Parole Act will require when it becomes real. Number one, stop focusing on the past, right? That's only one factor that they have to consider. There's a host of other things that they'll typically gloss over, right, without any substantive consideration, right? And then ultimately make a decision based on, well, you killed someone or you did X, Y, and Z. When all that was handled up front, as I said, by the court, right? So the judge says, listen, he basically said, listen, you must be out of your mind to treat this guy like this based on his record, right? And all of the circumstances. If you looked at everything, it's impossible that you could have came to this conclusion. Do it over. You got a week to do it, and I was released. Wow. Right. Wow. So I basically had to, you know, I found myself in a legal street fight. Right. You know, it was amazing. But you know, and
so this is where the Fair and Timely, right, Mark?
Yes, the Fair and Timely Parole Act, right?
And this is why it's so hard to answer the initial question.
Don't focus on the crime. Say again, Jolene?
I'm saying this is why it's so hard.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, the initial question was like, where do we go to find rehabilitation? And the reason we can't answer it right now, especially in New York, is because it's not valued. When you go before when you go before the parole board, or when you go and do really anything in docs, your rehabilitation by law, by 59, what is it, 259I says your rehabilitation does not have to be valued for your release by law.
No,
so you have a whole very hopeless environment. That's where you're holding people in a very hopeless environment. Well, so right now, it's so important for Fair and Timely to pass right now because of what they're trying to do to HALT. They're trying to repeal HALT, saying that it's going to make the environment so dangerous. If they would bring the hope that Fair and Timely and elder parole would inspire for people in prison, if they would bring that in, you wouldn't have to worry about this nonsense that they're trying to pull with HALT, which is
they're trying to repeal. They're trying to repeal that law. The corrections union.
That's the prison union folks. Correction officers union is I saw some media about them being outspoken about it. Like basically they're just trying to undermine reality, right? You know, and have it thrown out so that they will have some legal cover for doing the dehumanizing things that they've been doing and they continue to do to incarcerated folks.
But
now here's the thing, right? When I first entered the system, one thing that jumped out, since we're talking about like people being incarcerated for ages, I realized after a while that all of these old timers that I was running into, they came in the system just like me as young men.
Right.
And that when I saw them, you know, after I had this moment of clarity, I said, if they keep, you know, denying me parole, and people like me, I wasn't the only one, right? But if they keep this up, they're gonna have a fresh new crop of old timers, and it's gonna be us. We're looking at our future. Because well, Mark, a lot of these old timers, right, who kept us on the straight and narrow, right, they were disappearing, mostly by death, not by parole.
Okay, and Jerry has a question for you, Mark.
And many of those who did, say again.
I said, and Jerry has a question for you.
Mark, I have a question. So there's a deeper issue. There's a disparity in the system, period, between white, Black, Latino. I understand with the elder release, it just advances a time that the elderly or the elder prisoners go before the parole board. But if the parole board members are still biased against the inmates, you're still going to have the issue of 1 in 4 white men are granted parole, where 1 in 6 Black or Latino men are granted parole. That's the bigger issue, that they're not being evaluated by their peers. They're being evaluated by a lot of people who are on the board from political appointments or favors, and they're not giving people a chance. They're still discriminating against the inmates, not on the basis of how they've changed, but the color of their skin.
No, I agree. Not only is that real, I actually experienced that.
Yeah, definitely. Is that going to change it? I mean, you're going to have people going in the parole board that wouldn't have the chance earlier, but do you think they're going to, I guess, put more Black or Latino members to serve on the parole board so they can be evaluated by their peers?
Okay, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this phrase, right? And I didn't coin this. It's not a neologism of mine, right? But all your skin folks ain't your kin folks.
That's
and let me tell you, I've been in front of Black, white, Latino parole commissioners. It was where their hearts and minds were, where their political concerns were, that mattered the most to them. So when you had people like even Bill Clinton, who said, well, he wasn't going to let the Republicans outdo him on criminal justice, and he came up with that 1994 crime bill, on behalf of what's this guy's name, Joe Biden. He signed it into law. In that bill was provisions for states that didn't have or didn't practice like serious punishment, like the punishment that they envisioned should be in that bill, right? For those states who didn't meet that criteria, they were offering money
to build more prisons.
If you step it up, if you lock up more people, keep them in jail longer, we'll give you money. This is the thing. This is around the time of Governor George Pataki, who rode into office on the backs of people like me, screaming tough on crime and parolees. This is when parole in New York State seriously got strict. You can thank your Democrats for that, right? That was a Democratic initiative that the Republicans seized on as cover to justify the things that they were doing, right? And
that was also when
you said, Indira, what you said brings me to our third point, which is a legislative effort that we're trying to do. We're trying to get the parole board fully staffed, right? There are some vacancies in New York on the parole board. There's like, the law allows for 19 commissioners. I think there's 16 currently seated. That leaves 3 vacancies. We're trying to get the parole board fully staffed with people who not only share our values of like redemption, transformation, and mercy, right? But that understand, first of all, that whether you're incarcerated or not, people do people things. People do good things, people do bad things. People make messed up choices, right?
Definitely.
But people are people in the first place, regardless of whether they're incarcerated or not, right? So we're trying to get additional folks on the parole board who have those kinds of backgrounds, let's say like social work, clergy, you know, people who have my background, training, and experience that understand, first of all, that when you have someone sitting in front of you who is being considered for parole, that this is a human being that you're talking about.
Exactly.
This is a human being whose life you're about to impact. And it's not even just that. When one person goes to jail, the whole family suffers too.
Oh, definitely.
So by sending me to jail, it wasn't just I was being punished. It was my whole family was experiencing this all up with me repeatedly.
I gotta jump in for a minute. Mr. Charlie Norris has to leave us for a minute because he has another meeting, but I want to thank him so much for being on the show. And I want you back, Mr. Norris, because you were amazing and you're gonna be in our summer issue, but I want you back on the show next in June. So please come back. We thank you so much for your time and coming on and speaking with us. And I thank you for all of the help that you're doing in the community behind the wall. You have any last things you want to say to us before you go? Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself.
Sorry. Call me Charlie.
Okay.
Mark, again, I have to step off. I have another meeting I have to get ready for. My apologies. I will be back in June, and I look forward to having more conversations. And when the world, I'd rather sit in a room with you guys than do this, but that's okay. It's all right.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, Charlie, before you go, I just dropped my email in the chat for you so you can reach out and we connect offline and, perhaps, who knows, we can do some things together.
Oh, absolutely. Beautiful. I got it.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you so much, everybody. And again, go on medium.com in the search box, Charlie Norris. Read my articles. I'm trying to bring hope. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to work, but
it's working. Thank you so much.
Keep up the good fight.
Yes.
Got to do it. Peace, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Charlie, it takes a village. It takes a village. And so,
I'm just in the village. Bye. I'll see you in June.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Mark, I have one last question, if I may. So there's a couple vacancies on the parole board, and if I'm correct, the issue that New York State said was that we don't have enough money to fill these positions. Now that marijuana is legal, that's kind of like reparations for us. I mean, you're going to be making all this money off of marijuana, so you should have the money now. That shouldn't be.
We don't even have to wait that long, right? The Center for Justice at Columbia University just released a detailed study and analysis, of what the effect would be if they passed fair and timely parole and the elder parole bill. And they calculated that if they was to pass these bills right now, it would save New York State $522 million annually and billions over a decade. So there goes a whole pot of money right there. All they got to do is the right thing and help us save lives and right these wrongs.
I think some people like that, saving some money and tax money. That might appeal to some people.
As a matter of fact, I'm going to put the link to that article in the chat. Let me find it.
Thank you.
To that report. I mean, I'm sorry, I said that article. It was a report. It's called Unlocking Billions. So if anybody's got faster fingers than me and they want to pull it up and put it, okay, here we go.
You got it?
I got it. I'm going to put the link to this Columbia report in the chat now.
Got it. Thank you.
Guys,
You're very welcome.
there's also a weekly, am I wrong, Mark? Is it a weekly membership meeting for those who are interested in being a part of, of RAPP? When is this?
Okay, well, no, we have monthly membership meeting. First of all, it's free. Doesn't cost you anything to be a member. If you're concerned, whether you're impacted or otherwise, you know, just concerned about the human justice issues that we're trying to address, then we invite you to come on board. And I'm going to post I got to find the links. Wow, I should have had that ready. Okay, give me a second to get the links.
Is it the parole? I'm sorry, the People's Campaign?
No, that's the campaign that RAPP is leading, that, you know, in coalition with several other groups. But if you want to attend, find out more about RAPP, right, you can go to our website, rappcampaign.com, right? Or if you
I put that in the link. I put that in the group already, I think. But
what I wanted to add just now, though, is that if anyone is interested in receiving our newsletter, email newsletter, you could put your email in the chat right now. I could add you. I'm actually the one that does it. I manually put people in the system, right, for the email. So if you want to put that, you know, we'll send you the email. We won't flood your email box. You'll get the latest news and information about what we're doing, any actions or events that we're hosting in your area. For those in New York, I did see someone mention something about out of state, but no, RAPP is based in New York, and our issues concern changing the New York state parole system. Although we are connected to and have allied groups nationwide. I've been on conversations like this with people from California and elsewhere. You know, the same things are happening elsewhere. It's just that we happen to be the ones here in New York that we just say, okay, well, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna address this head on and end it all. Okay, I'm gonna add you to. Okay, Indira, that's your email?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm gonna, before the chat disappears, I'm gonna write that down.
And I really hope you can get together with Charlie, because if we had more people like that thought that way,
yes,
you know, this world would be a very different place. You know, so I hope you guys get to link up.
Someone said, okay, go ahead. I'm sorry, I was reading the chat.
Don't believe punishment is going to cure anything. Like, there's a lot of people that have survived violent crime, people that have survived sexual abuse, people that have survived identity theft, people that have survived DWI, that don't believe that punishment is the only way to correct the wrongs that are committed against other people. So there's a different approach that we could take. Like, when Mark had mentioned that the version of correction that's being used right now derives directly from slavery, as the 13th Amendment allows to continue here in the United States, like, it really blew my mind. It blew my mind. Because I've always been fighting against what they say that they're doing corrections when they're really just doing human warehousing. But I do want to throw a little ray of hope out there. When she had mentioned, like, what do you do? Where do you find corrections? Where do you find rehabilitative programs? There's two things that I tell people that are going upstate right now, or my husband tells people inside that he's mentoring. One, start your transformation right now within yourself. If it's not within yourself, if it doesn't come from a place of self-love, it's not going to be true. It's not going to be withstanding when you get out in the street. You know, start it right now. And then, you know, fundamentally start a rapport with a diplomatic rapport, if you can, with your counselor, with your counselor, and see whatever release programs you are eligible for. Like, some people are still eligible for work release. Unfortunately, like Mark had mentioned, with the sentencing reforms, work release for most people also got cut out for anyone that has violent offenses for the most part. But there are others some forms of merit time, some other forms of early release programs that some people are eligible for. So go and look at those directives, look and see what programs you have to take or what programs are would make you eligible for those release programs and start working on those. So that's what I tell people.
That's where good support, friends, family, wife come in when they sit down with their inmate on the phone call, say, what are you going to do with your life? What are the programs in the prisons available? New York State, you can get a degree. You can graduate with a graduate. You can get released with a degree. And when you get out,
that thought. Indira, hold that thought. Indira, 1 second. I gotta say something. One of my mentors was a brother by the name of we used to call him Old Man Justice. Name was Larry Pilgrim. He was the first dude to get a PhD.
Really?
In the prison system. Now, it wasn't because of the Department of Corrections. It was in spite of them, because he worked and saved his money and paid for his own education.
Really?
Right? And once he did it, it was, yes, he absolutely did. He was one of my mentors. He kept me inspired like all outdoors. Every time I would come and think I had done something, I bring him a diploma and I say, yo, just check this out. Look what I did. He said, nah, I'm not impressed. And I'm like, man, I go back and do some more. And I kept doing it so much that he said, okay, you've been doing it for a while now. I'm impressed now, right? But that was his way of like, giving me that friendly nudge, like, nah, bro, you got to keep going. Don't stop now. That's not it. Keep going. But when he got his PhD, it was so funny. He insisted that the COs call him doctor.
Nice.
I'm mad. I'm not mad. I'm not. Okay.
As they should.
And
right.
That's right.
I'm not inmate so-and-so. Don't call me Mr. Call me doctor. And they were tight.
Me doctor.
Okay. It was so funny. I would just crack up every time my name is Dr. So-and-so. Right?
All right now.
And that's something that's important to name is that New York doesn't offer those college programs. It's philanthropists in New York that offer those college programs. BARD, CPAP,
and they're not offered in all. And they're not offered in all New York State prisons. There's only 5. There's only 5 right now.
Some of these philanthropists do it anonymously, right? Like, I had an opportunity to get some take a college course from Cornell University. Right. Little did I know, I didn't know. I knew while incarcerated. But what I'm saying, I knew we had an anonymous donor behind. I didn't know it was Melinda Gates until later on. So some of these folks,
Hudson Link is working very much. Hudson Link is another amazing organization that's working through even throughout the pandemic right now to get people on board to donate. So that they can open up other schools and kind of bring people in so that they can get into other facilities where it's going to be offered throughout New York State, which is amazing in itself. Hudson Link is another amazing.
Okay, everyone, I want to thank you all. This was a tremendously amazing show. So
can I just say one more thing? I don't mean to interrupt you. You wanted me to say, so people who are interested in learning a little bit more about RAPP, it's RAPPCAMPAIGN.com, rappcampaign.com. Check them out. There's a lot of really good information there. And you want to join the fight, you're welcome to join and all that good stuff. Thanks.
Put it in the chat too. Put it in the chat so people can see it. But I want to, we got to wrap up. It's like 4 minutes left in the show. I want to thank everybody. Mark from RAPP, thank you. I hear so much great things about you. I hope to be working with you soon in the future with everything that we're going on. Miss Russ, I thank you for coming on. My co-host Kalia, pt2 Rice, and Zara, our social media director. Yes, you came on today. Jeannie Cologne, our activist. I want to thank you all. Charlie Norris, he had to leave, but he will be back on June's show. And Mark, I would like to have you back on June's show, so it'll be you guys. Thank you, Cheynin Cain. She left us earlier. She was the young lady that she did do time, but she's doing amazing things with her life now. She has a skincare line. She has a step team. She's, you know, motivating younger children. She's doing a lot with her life as well. I'm going to put her information in the chats too. And I want to thank you all for embracing the Women of the Wall and the Wall magazine. I just want to thank you guys. Anybody have anything they want to say before we go? And thank you again to Door Radio for having us. It's the station that's more than music, and anybody that is listening that want to listen to Door Radio, it's on 24 hours a day. He's been on internet radio for, I think, going on 11 years. So please do that. And Mark, yes, what you have to say.
Is there a website for your magazine? And if so, could you post that in the chat so I can go check it out? Thank you.
I sure can. And I want you to write an article, please, for the magazine. Okay?
Who, me?
Yes, you.
Me? Listen, you would be surprised. I'm probably talking a whole lot right now, right? But you'd be surprised. I wasn't this dude. Like for years, right? I couldn't get up in front of a group of people and talk, right? And that was because I got booed off stage at my grade school talent show, and I was afraid to do this ever since.
Oh,
you're awesome.
I'm still working on it. Right?
That is so many people's story though. They couldn't at one point, or who they were then is not who they are now. So we got to recognize the transformation.
Yeah.
We are not the sum. We're going to leave it with this. We are not the sum of our worst mistakes. And we have to make sure that we just keep fighting the good fight, and we keep being the voice for those that can't be heard, and keep encouraging our loved ones, because they're people, and, they are not the sum of that one mistake that they made.
Well, Leah, you have anything to say? KP2 Rights, you have anything to say? Come on, give us some wisdom before we go. Unmute yourself. Unmute. We can't hear you. Unmute yourself.
Oh yeah, great show, guys. Hope to see y'all back. I will be contacting all these organizations that y'all put out here today, and see y'all in the magazine.
Kalia, there's amazing writers. There's some amazing writers in Sing Sing. They're collectively called the Writers Team, and they are doing. They're working hard to make the Wall magazine something amazing. But on a separate note, there's an author who's got a book out, and he's published. That you got amazing writers. Like I can, you can reach out to them in Sing Sing, and they're ready to get busy. You want to play? Let's work together and get a play done. You have a lot of brilliant minds behind prison walls, and it's just we gotta tap into that brilliance, seriously.
Well, guys, God bless. Thank you for coming out. I'm looking to talk to you guys again in June. Mark, take us away with our anthem, and thank you guys. An amazing show. Thanks again. God bless. Take care, Mark.
Unmute yourself. Mark, unmute yourself.
Thank you for having me. It's been a blast, right? I'm looking forward to coming back. Thank you for the invite. That was great. Indira, as soon as we log off, I'm going to add your name to the subscription list for the newsletter. So
mine's too.